In the mid-20th century, Hollywood had a strange relationship with female sexuality. Women were expected to look seductive, behave like fantasies on screen, and attract millions of admirers. But when a woman openly embraced her own sexuality, the same society could quickly label her immoral, unstable, or even nymphomaniac. The term was once used loosely by psychiatrists and journalists to describe women whose sexual behavior was considered excessive, even when much of it simply challenged the expectations of the time. Behind the glamorous images of classic Hollywood were women whose private lives were far more complicated than the characters they played. Here are 15 Golden Age stars whose reputations for extraordinary sexual freedom became part of Hollywood legend. Clara Bow. We have to begin with the original It Girl. Clara Bow became the defining symbol of the Roaring Twenties. With her expressive eyes, rebellious personality, and unmistakable screen presence, she represented a new kind of woman, confident, independent, and openly flirtatious. But Bow's private life became the subject of relentless gossip. Her difficult childhood had left deep emotional scars, and throughout her adult life she searched for affection, companionship, and validation in complicated relationships. Hollywood newspapers and gossip columns transformed her romantic life into a spectacle. She was linked to several prominent men, including Gary Cooper and director Victor Fleming, while countless other stories circulated around her. One of the most famous rumors claimed that Bow entertained the entire USC football team at wild parties. That story has been heavily disputed and exaggerated over the years. What is much better documented is the enormous pressure placed on Bow by fame, scandal, and public scrutiny. Her emotional struggles eventually contributed to her withdrawal from Hollywood. She retired from the screen at just 28, leaving behind one of the most fascinating careers of the silent era. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was almost impossible to categorize. She was a theatrical powerhouse, a fearless actress, and one of the most openly unconventional personalities of her generation. Bankhead refused to hide her attraction to both men and women and developed a reputation for living life according to her own rules. Her romantic history became legendary. She was associated with numerous famous figures from the worlds of film, theater, music, and politics, and stories about her nightlife became almost as famous as her performances. Bankhead also had a wicked sense of humor when discussing her reputation. Her outrageous personality allowed her to turn scandal into entertainment, often saying things that would have been considered shocking coming from almost anyone else. But beneath the jokes and extravagant lifestyle was a woman who seemed to crave excitement and companionship. She despised boredom and frequently surrounded herself with people. In conservative Hollywood, Bankhead's openness made her both fascinating and dangerous to the establishment. She didn't simply survive the scandal machine. She made scandal part of her brand. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was almost impossible to categorize. She was a theatrical powerhouse, a fearless actress, and one of the most openly unconventional personalities of her generation. Bankhead refused to hide her attraction to both men and women and developed a reputation for living life according to her own rules. Her romantic history became legendary. She was associated with numerous famous figures from the worlds of film, theater, music, and politics, and stories about her nightlife became almost as famous as her performances. Bankhead also had a wicked sense of humor when discussing her reputation. Her outrageous personality allowed her to turn scandal into entertainment, often saying things that would have been considered shocking coming from almost anyone else. But beneath the jokes and extravagant lifestyle was a woman who seemed to crave excitement and companionship. She despised boredom and frequently surrounded herself with people. In conservative Hollywood, Bankhead's openness made her both fascinating and dangerous to the establishment. She didn't simply survive the scandal machine. She made scandal part of her brand. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford spent her entire career controlling her image. She understood the machinery of Hollywood better than almost anyone and carefully constructed herself as a powerful, glamorous, ambitious woman. Her romantic life, however, generated endless speculation. Crawford was romantically linked to several famous men, including Clark Gable and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. Stories about her relationships became part of Hollywood folklore, while later books and biographies often portrayed her as intensely passionate and highly driven. Some claims about Crawford's private life have become so exaggerated over time that separating fact from legend can be difficult. What is undeniable is that Crawford had a reputation for extraordinary determination. She approached relationships with the same intensity she brought to her career. She was not a passive Hollywood star waiting for life to happen to her. She pursued what she wanted. That combination of ambition, sexuality, and control fascinated the public, and sometimes frightened the people around her. Crawford remained one of Hollywood's most formidable personalities long after many of her contemporaries had disappeared from the spotlight. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was born in rural North Carolina and became one of the most glamorous women ever photographed. She possessed a natural sensuality that seemed almost effortless. Unlike many actresses who carefully manufactured a seductive image, Gardner appeared completely comfortable with her own magnetism. Her romantic history became legendary. She married Mickey Rooney while still very young, later marrying bandleader Artie Shaw and eventually Frank Sinatra. Along the way, she was romantically connected with several powerful and famous men, including Howard Hughes and Robert Mitchum. But her relationship with Sinatra became the defining romance of her life. Their marriage was passionate, volatile, and frequently turbulent. Both personalities were enormous, and neither was particularly interested in living quietly. Gardner never seemed ashamed of her sexuality. To her, physical attraction was part of life rather than something that required apology. That attitude was unusual in an era when actresses were expected to appear seductive while maintaining an image of respectable innocence. Ava Gardner managed to be both. She became one of Hollywood's greatest screen sirens precisely because she refused to pretend that she didn't know the effect she had on people. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich practically invented the modern screen seductress. She challenged traditional ideas about femininity through her clothing, performances, relationships, and public persona. Although she remained legally married to Rudolf Sieber for decades, Dietrich's romantic life was far more complicated than her marriage suggested. She was associated with numerous famous men and women, including writer Erich Maria Remarque, actor John Gilbert, Edith Piaf, and others. Many stories about Hollywood's secret bisexual social circles have also been connected to Dietrich, although some later accounts undoubtedly mixed fact with legend. What made Dietrich extraordinary was her complete lack of fear. She could wear a tuxedo, kiss another woman on screen, flirt with powerful men, and walk into an elite Hollywood party as though none of society's rules applied to her. Her sexuality became part of her mystique, but it was never the only thing that defined her. Dietrich was intelligent, ambitious, politically outspoken, and fiercely independent. She understood that mystery was power. And she knew exactly how to use it. Mae West. Mae West didn't merely embrace her sexuality. She turned it into an empire. Long before Hollywood made her famous, West was already writing and performing provocative stage material. Her play Sex became notorious, and her willingness to challenge censorship eventually landed her in legal trouble. When she arrived in Hollywood, she was already approaching 40, an age when actresses were often considered past their prime. West proved everyone wrong. She surrounded herself with attractive younger performers and created an image based on confidence, humor, and sexual independence. But there was something different about West. She was never presented as helpless. She controlled the joke. She controlled the conversation. And most importantly, she controlled herself. Her famous one-liners transformed sexuality into comedy, making her one of the most quotable stars in American cinema. Mae West didn't apologize for desire. She monetized it. And decades later, her influence can still be seen in the confident, sexually independent female characters she helped inspire. Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez was known as the Mexican Spitfire, and the nickname perfectly captured her personality. She was energetic, emotional, impulsive, and intensely passionate. Her romance with Gary Cooper became one of Hollywood's most turbulent relationships. Their arguments could reportedly become explosive, and stories about their jealousy and emotional confrontations circulated widely. Voles later married Olympic swimmer and actor Johnny Weissmuller, but their relationship was also famously volatile. Her private life became tabloid entertainment, while her emotional struggles were often reduced to jokes. Today, those stories look considerably more complicated. Voles was a woman living under extraordinary pressure, dealing with fame, unstable relationships, and an increasingly hostile press. Her life ended tragically in 1944 when she died by suicide at just 36. Hollywood remembered the explosive personality. But behind the headlines was a deeply complicated woman whose emotional suffering was frequently turned into entertainment. Her story remains one of the saddest chapters of the Golden Age. So, which of these Golden Age stars surprised you the most? And if you want more hidden scandals, forbidden romances, and shocking secrets from classic Hollywood, make sure to subscribe to Dark Stardom and turn on notifications. Because behind every legendary Hollywood smile, there may be a story they never wanted you to know.